It's game day Eve. Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation from Provo and Laramie. Didn't think we'd say that too often, but here we are. Jeremy Jordan, Spencer Linton. The perfect guest for this week is someone who is from Wyoming but played at BYU, and we've got him. Brady Poppinga, former BYU Cougar, native of Evanston, Wyoming, and NFL linebacker, defensive end as well. Brady Poppinga's on the show. Brady, what up, dog? How you doing, man?
What's up, man? Always good to join you guys. And yeah, what a great week with BYU facing Wyoming. You know, when you grow up in Wyoming and BYU faces Wyoming, you always are hearing the detractors. There's a lot of smack talking going on. And fortunately, for the most part, we've always got the best of that matchup. So, but yeah, it'll be a fun game this weekend. I know Wyoming isn't coming to play very good football, but that doesn't seem to matter in these kind of games.
Brady, how would you explain the rivalry, having grown up in Wyoming and you having a different perspective on it, for those that aren't familiar with what BYU Wyoming actually means?
Well, you know, Wyoming is a place that you could say has a lot of rough, tough, tumbling people that live there. You have to. It's a climate that's not very desirable. It's uncomfortable. It's always cold. Even when it's like 80 degrees in the summer, there's still a tinge of some kind of cold, like it's still winter. It's kind of fascinating. So when you have that, and then from Wyoming to, let's say, a Utah perspective, Salt Lake, Provo, there's a perception that those people that live in Utah, and I say those people because that's kind of how it's categorized, are a little preppy. You know, they're a little bit comfortable. They're a little entitled. They come up with their, you know, their nice little clothes. Their hair's combed all pretty. And it's kind of like we want to show these, you know, these preppies what it's about to come into a rough, tumbling place. And so I would say that's where the rivalry really is. It's kind of from a sense of just rough and country to more refined kind of city folk. Although, you know, Utah County, Salt Lake really isn't like a huge metropolis, but relative to a state that has like 500,000 people in Wyoming, it's a huge metropolis. So I'd say that's the kind of perception. And then the fact that they're in the WAC for so many years and, you know, then the Mountain West Conference, there's just always been this hate for BYU. And BYU just is naturally one of the most hated teams throughout the country. So you add all that up together, and it just creates for Wyoming this extra sense of motivation to come out and compete with a real edge. And that's why, like, what you've seen in Wyoming so far this year, they got blasted by Arizona State. They got upset by Idaho last week. Will not be the same Idaho team that faces BYU tomorrow night. Trust me on that one.
Yeah, they're going to bring it, and there's a lot of history, as you mentioned. BYU's first win ever was against Wyoming in 1922. They played them twice that year, interesting enough. The WAC title game in 96. You talk about the history of being in the same league for a long time. So it's pretty – Josh Allen's last game was against BYU in the Poinsettia Bowl. There's a lot of history there. Okay, for this matchup this year, you talked about the Wyoming side of it. You expect Wyoming to play way better. BYU coming into this game, defense was awesome. Offense was not against SMU, 2-0. Yet BYU's top two running backs are out. Jake Retzlaff trying to take care of the ball. This one feels like an important game for both sides, Brady.
Oh, it's huge. Now, and this is the message I sent to the players, you know, because I've been involved with, especially the defensive side of the ball, a lot of the you could say kind of assistant coaching for my brother Kelly whenever I can. It's not like an official role or, you know, I'm not there as much as like a real coach, but I try to do as much as I can. And my message to the guys this last week was simply, the reality is when you're finally in a true playoff system league, which now college football has gotten to that point, it's all about how fast you can improve throughout the season, because the teams that improve the fastest will end up being the teams that are playing the best and have the most likelihood of getting into the playoffs and making a run. So I told them, don't look at this like you're facing Wyoming. Look at this from a macro perspective, that you're competing against every other team out there of who can improve week in and week out at the fastest rate. And that they've already started off very well, and that they got to continue to stack weeks after weeks after weeks. And one little lapse is going to put them behind everybody else in terms of progression and improvement, which hurts their chances of really making a run at the end of the year. And so that's what you have to have in terms of mentality, because like I said, if you're going to go off of the film and you're going to be like, okay, I'm facing this guy or that guy from Wyoming, you naturally are going to have a tendency to think that you're just going to walk into this game and dominate these guys. These guys have not shown well on film at all. I'm talking they're the worst team BYU's faced on their schedule. But if you go in with that kind of mentality, and there's my wife in the background, by the way.
Hi.
Say hi. Hi. Well, it's this side, actually. Oh, wait. Shoot, that's like backwards. Anyway, so the point is you got to have a mentality of progression and improvement in spite of who you're playing. And you can't get caught up with who you're playing, especially this week, because they literally, on film from the past, are not looking good. But that shouldn't be any factor in how BYU prepares and how they're ultimately approaching this game, because the team they're facing is not going to look anything like they saw on film first. And then there's bigger goals for them to have. And in order for them to attain those goals, they have to go in with a mentality where they're just looking to get as improved, as far along in their progression, as fast as they can. And this is a week to do that.
Former BYU and NFL linebacker Brady Poppinga is on BYU Sports Nation. And Brady, statistically speaking, what would an A-plus performance from BYU look like? Have you circled some specific numbers in the final score, a margin of victory? What type of things are you looking for if we're going to call this an A-plus?
I'm not looking at the scoreboard because, like I said, Wyoming is going to be very different. It's a very small community. It's a very different culture. There could be a culture shock for some of these guys coming in from Provo. Like I said, Wyoming tends to play better. So the scoreboard, I don't think is going to be a very big indicator. It could be. And scoreboard's a lot of times not exactly the indication of what actually happened between the lines during the kickoff to the end of the game. But to me, what I want to see is a continuation of defensively playing extremely physically, playing with a frenzied mentality, but playing within the scheme to where they are playing clean football. That's what you saw against SMU, is outside of a couple of plays where they didn't get to curl the flat very well, and that was pretty much it. 2 plays. I think it was 70 plays. They were tight, meaning SMU to have to move the ball, have to do anything, had to be earned. Like, you had to break tackles. You had to win in a 50-50 situation if you're a receiver. If you're a quarterback, you were going to have to avoid the pressure and somehow find a receiver and throw him open. That's hard football, especially in college. And so they have to continue on that path. And the way you do that is you play the same approach they have these last few weeks, including the first game of the year. But you got to stay clean in your assignments. You got to be so clean that the only way the offense moves the ball is they have to earn it. Because the reality is, offensive football, when it's played well, will always defeat and be superior to great defensive football. That's just the nature of the game today. But having said that, if they can handle that and be assignment sound, they will choke out this offense. They'll choke out most offenses. And all that means is you just give them no air to be able to make any kind of progress or get any rhythm, because an offense is a rhythmic-based operation. On the offensive side of the ball, we all know what they have to do. This is not hard. It starts with the quarterback. He's got to be the guy. I've seen Red slap for them. I've seen every single one of his snaps in spring. I've seen every one of his snaps in the fall camp. I've seen every one of his snaps this week in practice. I see what I see. This guy can throw the ball as good as anybody that you can imagine playing quarterback, okay? That's not the problem with this guy. Plus, he's a very big-time ultimate competitor. And I think that sometimes leads to him being reckless with the football, because he thinks as a competitor, I never want to concede. I never want to take a sack. I never want to throw the ball in the dirt on the screen pass. And I'm not sure if, it's a clean throw or not. I don't want to go down without stretching my arm out and maybe losing ball security. He's got to fix that mentality and be the opposite, which is, if I want to win, I got to live for another day. If I want to win, I got to put my offense and defense in a good position. If I want to win, I can't turn the ball over recklessly. Now, if he's going to be throwing the ball in a tight coverage and on an anticipatory route and it gets picked off, or the ball gets tipped up or whatever, it gets picked off, we can live with that. But it's all with him. He's the guy, and he can make it happen. I've seen enough of him to where I'm with Kalani and I'm with Aaron, and this guy can lead BYU to big-time things, but he has to change his mindset of this ultimate competitor of thinking he can never take a sack, he can never go down, and change that to say, no, those are actually good plays when you compare them to the alternative of turning the ball over. And if he can get there mentally, where he can understand the situation and play to the situation, it's going to be exciting. I'll put it that way.
BYU turned it over 3 times at SMU. First win in 5 years when BYU turned the ball over 3 times or more because that defense was awesome.
The defense. Yeah.
Okay, do you have any great playing in Laramie, Wyoming stories? We've heard crazy stories. Guys, they know they need to come out with their helmets on when they walk out of the locker room. Anything come to mind as a native Wyoming guy?
Oh, yeah. Well, when we were playing there, it was my junior year, I kept prepping our team saying, look, because at that time, we stayed at this drive-in, which was a hotel, which is called Foster's Drive-In. And you got to understand, growing up in Wyoming, Laramie was in my same sports conference in high school. So I traveled to Laramie, I don't know how many times to play basketball, to play football, track. So I'm very familiar with this Foster's Drive-In. And so I kept telling my teammates, look, we're going to go stay at maybe the most dumpiest podunk hotel you can imagine. So get your minds right. It's not going to be this posh, Marriott down on, where we stay at San Diego. I forget the name of that place, but it's like it's like a posh 5-star hotel, I was like, no, this is really going to be rough. So sure enough, we land. I think we flew into Cheyenne. We drive to the game, through the desolate plains there of eastern Wyoming. We get to, to Laramie. And we get to the Foster's Drive-In, and you hear a bus gasp. Oh, no, we're not staying here. And I turned to him, I go, I've been telling you this the whole time. And Mania Brown, I don't know if you guys remember him, but he was our defensive lineman. And he just looked at me, he's like, but Brady, I didn't imagine it being this bad. And so I'm not sure if that affected the psyche of the team, but Wyoming upsetted us. They beat us 13-10. Talk about an abysmal offensive performance. But that was one of those where culture, in terms of the community and in terms of where you're going, does play a role in like your mentality. And that's one thing these guys need to understand. Like, they are going into a very rough place to play. And that's how Wyoming likes it. And that's why, by the way, I think college football at large does not – P4 programs do not like to go to Laramie or can avoid at all costs. The fact that Tom kept this game on the schedule speaks a lot. I mean, it shows that, he keeps his contracts, obviously, but it also shows that they're willing to play with a little fire, because this is a perfect game for Wyoming to really catch BYU off guard and to kind of get BYU coming in with the mentality that they're trying to just get out of this game with the minimal amount of damage possible, which could lead to them not playing very well. So this Wyoming team cannot be underestimated. There are a lot of things working against them when they play against Wyoming.
I'm happy to report BYU is not staying at Foster's Inn. So they are staying in Cheyenne, Brady, at a more reasonable hotel. Now, I want to finish with this. How would you explain to BYU fans your relationship with your brother Kelly, not just as brothers, but as also, in a way, now fellow coaches, as you've been an analyst and helping out with BYU in that way, too?
Yeah, it took place last year when my son passed away. It was very, heart-wrenching, obviously, for all of us. And one of the big things that really hurt me was that the legacy of being able to pass on my football knowledge was my youngest son, or was my son. And when he passed on, I was like, I can't go to the next life. I can't pass through the veil without sharing, my legacy. So I told Kelly, because, I used to always give Kelly little bits of advice, or not advice, but just because Kelly knows his stuff. Just like little suggestions here and there. And whether he liked it or not, I'm not sure. And so I just asked him, I said, is it okay if, I kind of just share with you some things that I see? And he was very excited about it. And we sat down and we had a film session, and, and then he talked to Kalani, and then Kalani said, hey, whenever Brady wants to come out and participate however he wants, he can do that. And so Kalani is basically giving me full access to when I'm there. If I want to jump into any meeting, if I want to, be with the players or just do whatever, just to be around the guys and to pass on my football knowledge, they're letting me do that, which has been amazing. And so what I've noticed is that, when you have coaches like Kelly, for example, he coaches special teams in addition to coaching the edge guys, that there's an opportunity there to bring not only a experiential perspective, since I played the position, but also some more technical things that, so hard for Kelly to hit on each individual guy technically. So he's passed along their numbers to me, and he's given me access to their, like I said, to their practice film. And I will go down and for each player that I see necessary, I'll do videos and I'll break down certain things that they can work on or certain things that they've really improved on. And then when I go there, we'll actually work those. And so it's a really cool thing to see, Tyler Batty, to see Ephraim, to see Isaiah, Logan, all those guys, they're starting to really understand the art of pass rushing and the art of playing the edge position. And I think that's, helped everybody. And so to know that I have a little bit of because Kelly's done 95% of it, 97%, maybe 99, I don't know. He's done all the work except for a small portion where I've come in, but it's nice to see them, take what I've been bringing and then it's helping them, which they find to be kind of like, wow, this is validating. I'm going to keep listening to this guy. He's just not coming here to just pass the time away. He's coming here to contribute. And it feels good to have some contribution. And I am, really grateful for Kalani and Kelly allowing me to have that role with the team, as it's been really it's been good for me coping wise. And then it's, like I said, a way for me to contribute to give and pass along the football knowledge that I gained over the years.
That's amazing that it can be helpful in any way for you, and obviously it's helpful for these players to have your insight. I saw you in the box at the Southern Illinois game, and I thought that's pretty cool that Brady's
in the
here.
box.
Or sorry, you were outside the box, but you were nearby and available should they need any insight, which was awesome. So
yes.
That's awesome. We look forward to hopefully seeing you at more games, and thanks for the insight, Brady.
Always a pleasure, guys, and I'll be back. Don't you worry.